Hello, I'm Dilek Tuna. You're watching A News. Let's take a look at today's top stories. The US Senate backs Trump's military action in Iran as further strikes continue throughout the Middle East. Voters across Nepal are heading to the polls in a crucial general election. And Iran has carried out a drone strike on Azerbaijan's Nakhchivan airport. There is damage to the airport and 2 civilians injured. US lawmakers have backed the ongoing military campaign in the Middle East as fighting between Washington, Israel and Iran intensifies. Over the past few hours, attacks have continued across several countries, with the reported death toll in Iran surpassing 1,000.
On Wednesday, U.S. Senate Republicans backed President Donald Trump's military campaign against Iran, voting 53-47 to block a bipartisan resolution that would have required congressional approval for hostilities.
45 of the last 47 presidents, which is all we've had, have ordered kinetic acts, just like President Trump has done, without going to Congress. This isn't new. This has happened 45 in the last 47 presidencies.
The measure, aimed at reasserting Congress's constitutional war powers, was largely opposed along party lines. A similar resolution is being debated in the House, with a vote expected on Thursday. Meanwhile, the conflict in the region continues to escalate. The Pentagon says a U.S. submarine sank an Iranian warship near Sri Lanka, with over 24 crew members rescued. Human rights monitors report more than 1,000 people have been killed in Iran since U.S. and Israeli strikes began over the weekend. Sunday's drone attack on a U.S. facility in Kuwait killed 2 more American reservists, raising the total to 6. Israel has carried out new strikes in Iran and targeted Hezbollah positions in Lebanon, leaving several dead and thousands displaced. Iran has launched retaliatory strikes at Israel, while the UAE and Qatar report intercepting projectiles. In northern Iraq, a drone was shot down near Erbil Airport, crashing into a residential building and causing damage but no injuries.
Israel says its military campaign against Iran is set to continue for at least another 1 to 2 weeks, as Israeli and US forces expand operations targeting Iran's missile capabilities and military infrastructure. Our Maria Rodriguez Abalda has more.
IDF planning for at least 1-2 more weeks of Iran operation where more than 5,000 bombs were dropped. The Israeli Air Force is targeting ballistic missile launchers and military access in western and central Iran areas used to fire long-range missiles at Israel. USA forces are focusing on southern Iran, where short-range missiles have been launched against USA bases in the Gulf. The two militaries have also divided their objectives. USA forces are leading operations against the Iranian Navy, while Israel is concentrating on strategic sites in Tehran as well as other critical infrastructure. And also the Israel Defense Force are moving to phase 2 of the war, attacking all of Iran's military industries. Lebanon say Israeli strikes this week have killed 72 people and displaced over 83,000. Hezbollah has heavily increases attacks on Israel, including their first coordinated strike with Iran and regular attacks on IDF troops built up near the border with drones and anti-tank weapons. The rate of Iran's ballistic missile fire on Israel continues to slow, according to the Israeli military, with all projectiles fired overnight being successfully intercepted by air defense. Since the start of this operation, there have been 13 sites of Iranian missile impacts in residential areas of Israel. The Home Front Command is scheduled to conduct another assessment over the weekend and may decide to allow educational institutions to reopen starting next week. The Health Ministry reports that in the past 24 hours, 199 injured people have been taken to hospitals. 14 are in moderate conditions and 170 are in good conditions. A total of 1,473 people have been evacuated to hospitals since the fighting began on Saturday.
US President Donald Trump is set to host leaders from 12 Latin American countries at a summit in Miami, Florida on Saturday. The region, particularly on security, organised crime, drug cartels and illegal migration.
I would also add that this weekend, I'm pleased to announce the President will welcome the heads of state from 12 nations across our Western Hemisphere in Miami, Florida on Saturday. The point of this newfound Latin America summit is to promote freedom, security, and prosperity in our region. The following countries will be in attendance: Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Honduras, Panama, Paraguay, Trinidad and Tobago, and maybe some others as well. And the President will be speaking with the leaders of this country who have really formed a historic coalition to work together to address criminal narco-terrorist gangs and cartels and counter illegal and mass migration into not only the United States, but the Western Hemisphere, which remains a key and top priority of this President.
Venezuela and the United States have agreed to work together on developing the country's mining sector. Interim President Delcy Rodriguez and US Interior Secretary Doug Burgum announced after talks in Caracas. The government is planning reforms to open the sector to large foreign companies, including for gold, diamonds, rare earth elements and other critical minerals. After the meeting, President Donald Trump praised Interim President Rodriguez, saying she's doing a great job and cooperating well with US officials, adding that the nations now enjoy a wonderful relationship. Hungary says Russia will release 2 ethnic Hungarians captured while serving in the Ukrainian army after talks in Moscow between President Vladimir Putin and Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó. The decision follows a request from Prime Minister Viktor Orban during a phone call with Putin a day earlier. During the meeting, the sides also discussed Russian oil and gas supplies to Hungary. Putin said Moscow's always met its energy commitments to partners it considers reliable, including Hungary and Slovakia. But he warned Russia could reconsider supplying the European market since EU keeps imposing new sanctions on Russian gas.
At the same time, other markets are opening up, and perhaps it would be more profitable for us to stop supplying the European market right now, to move into those markets that are opening up and establish ourselves there. There is no political motive here, I want that to be clear. But if they are going to close us off in a month or 2 anyway, then perhaps it is better for us to stop ourselves now.
A devastating landslide at the Rubaya coltan mine in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has killed over 200 people. Among the victims were around 70 children, with many of those injured evacuated to hospitals in Goma. Authorities said the disaster struck a site where continued mining operations had been discouraged until safety measures were put in place. Officials say the landslide was caused by the heavy rainfall over the past few days. This tragedy comes just a month after another landslide at the same mine claimed more than 200 lives, highlighting ongoing safety concerns in the region. Voters across Nepal are heading to the polls in a crucial general election following last year's Gen Z-led anti-corruption protests that toppled the government. Nearly 19 million people are registered to vote, including around 1 million first-timers. A 35-year-old former rapper turned politician, Balendra Shah, is grabbing the spotlight in this race. Early results are expected soon.
Polls have opened across Nepal today in the country's first general election since deadly youth-led protests forced the government from office last September. Around 19 million people are registered to vote, including almost 1 million first-time voters. Voters are choosing all 275 members of the House of Representatives in what many see as a defining moment for the Himalayan nation's democracy. More than 3,400 candidates from 65 political parties are competing in the election. Traditional parties such as the Nepali Congress led by Gagan Thapa and the Nepal Communist Party led by KP Sharma Oli are facing strong competition from newer challengers. The 3-year-old Rastriya Swatantra Party, a rising force, has nominated former rapper and Kathmandu Mayor Balendra Shah for Prime Minister. The 35-year-old Shah is running directly against 74-year-old former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli in his own constituency, setting up one of the most closely watched contests of the election. Voters are expressing optimism about these polls, with the younger generation taking an even more active role in shaping Nepal's future.
I have voted for a new government. The new government will provide development. They will make fresh rules and regulations for the country for the benefit of the people. That is what I have voted for.
Kind of change we want in Nepal, especially we young generation are very much sure. We are very much against corruption. We're very much for us, for the people, the working class. So yeah, that pretty much sums up what we want.
The unrest, triggered by a social media ban, quickly grew into mass protests over corruption, unemployment and inequality, leaving nearly 77 people dead. The turmoil forced Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to resign and led to the dissolution of Parliament. A 6-month interim government has been in place since. Voting runs from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. local time, with early results expected Friday and final counts possibly taking a week due to the mountainous terrain.
Large parts of Cuba, including the capital Havana, have been hit by widespread power outage after the country's main thermoelectric plant suddenly shut down. Authorities say repairs could take several days as crews work to restore electricity.
A major power outage has left much of Cuba without electricity. The state electricity provider says the blackout was triggered by an unexpected shutdown at the Antonio Guterres thermoelectric plant, about 100 kilometers east of Havana. The plant is the country's largest generator, and officials say a leak in the boiler system forced it offline, causing a partial collapse of the national power grid. Engineers are now working to identify the fault and bring the system back online, but repairs could take 3 to 4 days.
Thanks to the fact that we have gas from the street, we can make pizzas, fried foods. I don't know, things with the gas from the street, and we can serve 2 or 3 meals. If, for example, we have a day without power, I run out of ice, I can't serve drinks, I can't serve cocktails, I can't serve anything.
Cuba has experienced repeated blackouts in recent years as its aging power infrastructure struggles with fuel shortages and limited investment. The crisis has been worsened by the suspension of oil shipments from Venezuela and other suppliers under pressure from the United States.
This is the 3rd time it's happened, and since the first time, it's been an experience. We prepare ourselves. I bought rechargeable lamps, I have a refrigerator, I make ice, I have boiled water, and so on. It's as if a cyclone were coming, so I prepare myself. Nothing else? Candles, lamps. If the lamp runs out, I have candles. That's all. Nothing else.
Authorities say recovery protocols have been activated, and one power plant in the eastern province of Holguin remains online as crews gradually attempt to restore the national electricity system.
Now, after the break, we turn to growing transatlantic tensions over the conflict in Iran. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has pushed back against threats from US President Donald Trump to cut off trade after Madrid refused to support military operations. Stay with us. Welcome back to A News. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has reaffirmed his opposition to the US-Israeli military campaign against Iran, saying his country will not be complicit in actions that could further escalate this conflict. His comments came after US President Donald Trump threatened to sever ties with Spain following Madrid's refusal to allow US forces to use jointly operated bases for strikes linked to the war. The dispute highlights growing tensions between Washington and some European leaders over how the conflict in Iran should be handled. Now let's bring in our guest, Enrique Cocero. He's a political analyst from Madrid, Spain. Enrique, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, Spain's taken a clear position against supporting the strikes on Iran. How unusual is it to see such open disagreement between Western allies during a conflict?
It's not so unusual if you're living in Spain. Pedro Sanchez depends a lot from extreme left parties and independence parties. So I think Pedro Sanchez is trying to show goodwill with their internal allies and internal partners of government, more than try to get that loyalty with European allies.
Does the dispute signal deeper divisions within NATO or the broader Western alliance?
We'll see. First and foremost, the movements that France, or even Greece have done in order to defend Cyprus from the Iranian attacks are just one person by person decision. It's not a collegiate decision. It's not a common decision. And of course, any country on the European Union and any country on the NATO got the power of deciding what to do. The famous clause that if an NATO member country is attacked has not been released, so has not been active. So right now, these disputes and these disagreements or these different positions in order to what to do are normal, are usual. I think that the main concern is going to come when one of those countries, one of the members of the alliance, is attacked. Since then, we're going to have these different players playing different games, and we saw this with Ukraine and the inherent risk that Poland was living for a long time after the Russians invaded Ukraine.
And what message does Spain's stance send to other European governments that may also be cautious about deeper involvement?
It's a tough question and a very good question, though. But right now we are hearing a lot of what of Spain and the Prime Minister of Spain is doing, and we are listening, or we are not hearing the silence of another countries as Netherlands, Belgium, even Italy, which amazes me the most, that Italy hasn't taken a clear position on the conflict. So I think there is a part of opportunism here from the Prime Minister of Spain in order to be the first to say, I'm not going to help in any way. And as I said, I think this is more trying to win the left that remains at his left in order to win, or in order to try to get some gain in the next election than any other matter that can come from the conflict itself.
And President Trump has threatened to cut off trade with Spain. From a geopolitical standpoint, how serious is that threat?
It's a complicated one because we just coming from last week. The Supreme Court has ruled that there is no such an implementation of tariffs in the way that Donald Trump wanted to implement to do, and the problem here is that you can't avoid the fact that it's illegal for the president of the United States trying to do that without the sense of the Congress. It's illegal for the president of the United States try to apply plain tariffs on a country on whatever trade they're making or whatever trade they are trying to do, and it's and the bilateral accords between the United States and the European Union clearly says that there is no way to apply tariffs to just one country because the commerce and the trading depend on the whole on the European Union as a whole. So I think it's tough. I also think that he's not gonna throw towel here in this with these measures. Something probably is gonna come in the next days. But right now, I think it's a tough situation in order to apply tariffs.
Enrique, could this dispute widen into a broader transatlantic disagreement over the war in Iran?
Of course it is, and I think that the main concern is not the discordant abroad the Atlantic, but within the very NATO alliance. And for some time, we're watching a NATO that was taking the things for granted, right? And right now, well, not right now, since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that scenario changed completely. Because, for instance, the European countries that have an eastern border with Russia are increasing their defense expenditure in many times whatever they had, and countries that are in the western or most to the west and touching the Atlantic are just dragging their feet in order to be in some according pace and an according rhythm of increasing defenses. No matter how much Donald Trump was insisting and was impelling to those countries to the defense expenditure. Now we're watching that the UK is having trouble with their bases on Cyprus. Germany is so willing to get in action as getting involved in the conflict, but trying to being tough on defense as much as France. And right now there is a big and a lack of rhythm and a big lack of accordance in order to establish a common point of view in order to what the NATO has to do for the defense itself and defense the member countries.
Okay. Now, on the other hand, Spain refused to allow the United States use of joint bases for operations linked to the conflict. How strategically important are those bases for American operations in the region?
They're important because all the cargo planes and all the planes that are operating from Rota and the other base, I can find in my mind right now the name, but they're obliged to operate from another basis, probably in Germany, probably in Italy. So whatever the planning or whatever the intendancy planning of those operatives to work and to feed whatever the deployment of the United States Navy and whatever the deployment of the United States Air Force are being just considered, they have to change. The distance between the bases are not huge, so they can travel and they can operate from the other base. But as I said, this I think is more a victim of an internal attitude that real trouble for the American deployment.
And could the US compensate, though, for that by relying more heavily on other allies or bases in the Middle East?
Without a doubt, especially when in the army and any military deployment, one of the first things you're looking for is efficiency. So if they can't operate from Spain, they're gonna try to adequate the plans and the strategy in nearer places in Europe as in the Middle East. So I don't think that this is causing a huge trouble for the American military. I think that Admiral Brad Cooper is working on the issue right now, trying to be at least as much as efficient as they are considering 3 weeks ago.
And how might the European Union attempt to balance its relationship with Washington while avoiding deeper involvement in this war?
We are watching that there are, as I said before, there are completely different positions on the relationships with the White House and with the American government and with the American president. I think that, and we are not talking about that too much, that countries, as I said before, Poland or Germany, are considering that the importance, the really, really heavy importance of having an ally as the United States. We saw Chancellor Merz 2 days ago in Washington, D.C., talking to and giving a press conference with President Trump. And there are other countries that they should hear anything about a conflict in Iran. But as much as we are dealing, and for me it's a critical matter here, as much as we are dealing with the Hormuz Strait, and as much the conflict are going to be placed in that critical path of oil ships and oil trading, I think the situation is going to change. Is going to change a lot if you are working for trying to free, if you want to say that word, if you want to use that verb, free the Hormuz Strait and release the Hormuz Strait from the hands of Iran. At the end, you're gonna get bigger price than if you don't. But right now, I think it's very soon to evaluate that.
Okay. And now looking ahead, Enrique, what would be the key indicators that the conflict in Iran could begin to reshape alliances beyond the Middle East?
My main here, not prediction, but the path that I'm trying to see here is what's going to happen with the Hormuz Strait, that Iran has been controlling hugely the last years, and any other country that is touching the strait is completely against Iran right now. Is placing a front against Iran. My other concern is what's going to happen with Iran. We are hearing and we are reading news about how the Israeli Air Forces and the American Air Forces are attacking whatever the lead and whatever the head of the state are appearing to be. Right now, we're talking about the son of Khamenei taking power of the country and taking charge of the country. And as much as these operations are going to be succeeding, the less leadership the country is gonna have, and that can go and get into a civil war. And we know for sure the Kurds and the Iranian Contra are being deployed and they are being activated. And having a country with a civil war even if we are considered this with a huge probability, is not very peaceful, not peaceful, but it's not a very quiet scenario in order to deal with, as I said before, the situation of the Hormuz Strait. So my best bet here is Israel and the United States are going to try to control the shores that are touching and giving a security zone, a security area around the shores of the Hormuz Strait. And let's see what's going to happen with the rest of the country, and how they deal with that.
Okay, Enrique, it's always a pleasure talking to you on the program. Thank you for your analysis today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, after the break, we'll take a look at the major stories from the region. Now let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Iran has carried out a drone strike on Azerbaijan's Nakhchivan, damaging the terminal building of Nakhchivan International Airport. According to Azerbaijan's foreign ministry, 2 drones launched from Iranian territory entered Nakhchivan on the 5th of March. 1 drone struck the terminal building of Nakhchivan International Airport, while the second exploded near a secondary school in the village of Shakarabad. The attack damaged the airport facility and injured 4 civilians. According to Nakhchivan Ministry of Health, all were given first aid and their condition is reported as stable. Azerbaijan strongly condemned the strikes, describing them as a violation of international law and its territorial integrity. Iran's ambassador in Baku has been summoned to the Foreign Ministry, where a formal protest note will be presented and an explanation demanded. On Thursday, Iranian drones struck Azerbaijan's Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic, damaging the terminal building of Nakhchivan International Airport and injuring 2 civilians. Mariam Bababaili has more from the ground.
I'm Mariam Bababaili reporting from Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic, exactly from Nakhchivan International Airport, where we are standing right now. As you can see, the whole environment here. We live in a peaceful country. We try to maintain a peaceful manner with all the neighbors, all the countries, and out of sudden, they bomb you. We are having some difficulties in order to express our exact feelings, but the thing is that Azerbaijan continues to uphold its position as a supporter of peace and, of course, stability in the region. Now, as of March 4th, yesterday, the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, visited the embassy of the Islamic Republic of Iran in Baku, in Azerbaijan, and expressed his condolences about the death of the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Sayyid al-Khamenei, and also a number of civilians, of course. But despite this gesture, despite this fact, this peaceful manner, the regime widely criticized for its hostility towards the Azerbaijanis, particularly those Azerbaijanis living in Iran. According to the information that we have, 2 people got injured, and today Iran reportedly carried out a drone attack on Nakhchivan International Airport, unfortunately. Observers now, they argue that the same policies and actions that have targeted ethnic Azerbaijanis in southern Azerbaijan are now being directed against the peaceful population of Azerbaijan itself. A school building near Shakarabad region, Shakarabad territory of Nakhchivan, it also has a damage. So it is really hard for me to express the situation here because some people living in a peaceful manner, they got injured. I mean, that's the whole situation here, and we do believe in peace, and we do believe in the future stability in the region and also in the world.
Meanwhile, Turkey has lodged a diplomatic protest with Iran after a ballistic missile was launched toward Turkish airspace on Wednesday. The incident comes amid escalating tensions across the region and has prompted both diplomatic contacts and heightened security precautions in Ankara. Here are the details.
Turkey's foreign ministry summoned Iran's ambassador late Wednesday to protest the launch of a ballistic missile fired toward Turkish airspace. The missile was intercepted by NATO air defense systems over the eastern Mediterranean on Wednesday, according to Turkey's defense ministry. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan also spoke by phone with his Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi to convey Ankara's concern over the incident. According to the Turkish Foreign Ministry, Fidan stressed that any step that might further escalate the already volatile regional conflict should be avoided. He also urged restraint and emphasized the importance of preventing any actions that could widen the crisis. According to a statement released by Iran's foreign ministry, Araghchi denied that Iranian forces had launched any missiles toward Turkey, telling Fidan that Tehran's missile strikes were retaliatory and defensive in nature. He said Iranian strikes were directed exclusively at U.S. and Israeli facilities being used in operations against Iran. In a separate statement on Thursday, the Iranian military also denied firing any missiles toward Turkish territory and reaffirmed Tehran's respect for Turkey's sovereignty. Meanwhile, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Ankara was leaving nothing to chance regarding the security of its borders and airspace. He added that Turkey was taking all necessary precautions in close consultation with its NATO allies. In the immediate wake of the missile incident, Fidan also spoke by phone with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. According to officials, Rubio said that any attack on Turkey's sovereign territory was unacceptable and reaffirmed Washington's support. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Turkey has activated contingency plans to manage a possible refugee wave fleeing the conflict in Iran. Interior Minister Mustafa Çiftçi announced a three-tier strategy that includes establishing buffer zones along the border and setting up tent camps. While stressing that border crossings remain calm for now, the minister confirmed Turkey is ready to host up to 90,000 people in the event of a sudden influx. Evacuations from Iran are underway through the Astara checkpoint. Over 1,300 people, including dozens of diplomats, have safely crossed into Azerbaijan. Chimnaz Shahlar is reporting from the scene.
More than 1,300 people have been evacuated from Iran through the Astara checkpoint following the US and Israel military operations on February 28. The evacuees come from 45 countries, including 259 Azerbaijani citizens. Astara is becoming a key crossing point as evacuations continue. Since last night, over 20 people have crossed through Astara, including citizens of Azerbaijan, Spain and Russia. Evacuations involve documents checks, registration and other procedures. Once completed, people were safely sent to their destination. The checkpoint is now vital not only for civilians but also for diplomats. Recently, ambassadors and staff from Croatia, Brazil and Spain were evacuated. Around 30 people from 3 embassies crossed safely into Azerbaijan. I'm Chimnaz Shahlar with Nijat Kasımov reporting from Astara for A News.
Kazakhstan's president has thanked Saudi Arabia for helping evacuate Kazakh citizens from the Middle East amid rising regional tensions. Kassym-Jomart Tokayev discussed the situation in a phone call with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Our correspondent in Almaty has the details.
Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev has thanked Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for assisting in the evacuation of Kazakh citizens from the Middle East. The phone call took place amid rising tensions in the region. During the conversation, both sides noted that the escalation of conflict poses a threat not only to regional stability but also to global security. They also expressed concern that attacks are taking place on the territory of countries that are not directly involved in the confrontation. At the same time, Kazakhstan continues to bring its citizens home. According to the Civil Aviation Committee, more than 1,000 Kazakh nationals returned from the Middle East. The evacuation operation is still ongoing. And against the backdrop of growing regional tensions, the authorities in Kazakhstan have also stepped up security measures inside the country. President Tokayev instructed the government, security agencies, national companies and regional authorities to strengthen the protection of critical infrastructure. This includes energy and transport systems, as well as airports and seaports. The coordination of these measures has been assigned to the Secretary of the Security Council. Meanwhile, the government is assessing possible economic implications of the conflict. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Economy Serik Zhumangarin said Kazakhstan's supply routes have already been adapted to external challenges, including those that emerged after the war between Russia and Ukraine. He said routes through the Persian Gulf have rarely been used by Kazakhstan, including the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas, which has never been a key export route due to complex infrastructure and long transit through several countries. The minister added that the main economic risk is potential volatility of the national currency, the tenge, amid instability in global oil prices. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
Afghan-Pakistan border clashes raise regional concern, with China and Russia urging restraint. The UN warns fighting has halted humanitarian operations in parts of Afghanistan. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has the details from Kabul.
The United Nations World Food Programme says escalating clashes between Afghan and Pakistani forces are severely affecting civilians. WFP Regional Director John Elliott says around 20,000 families have been displaced, with fighting impacting more than 30 districts across eastern and southern Afghanistan. The insecurity has forced the agency to suspend emergency operations, leaving about 160,000 people without food assistance. The UN warns that violence could worsen Afghanistan's already severe hunger and malnutrition crisis. Meanwhile, the tensions are drawing international attention. China's ambassador to Afghanistan met Afghan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi, urging both Afghanistan and Pakistan to resolve the dispute through dialogue and diplomatic means. According to Afghanistan's foreign ministry, the ambassador also warned that outside forces could try to destabilize the region. Russia has also expressed concern, with its foreign ministry calling the clashes along the border a serious situation and urging both Kabul and Islamabad to avoid further confrontation. The fighting has now entered its 7th consecutive day, with both sides reporting significant casualties. The United Nations says more than 100 people have been killed or injured, while tens of thousands have been forced to flee their homes as cross-border strikes continue. With no immediate signs of de-escalation, humanitarian agencies warn that the longer the conflict continues, the greater the risk of worsening hunger, displacement and instability across the region. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
After the break, we turn to rising tensions between Turkey and Iran after an Iranian missile reportedly breached Turkish airspace. NATO has condemned the incident, while Ankara has summoned Iran's ambassador and raised concerns about regional security. Stay with us. Welcome back to A News. Turkey has raised concerns after an Iranian missile reportedly crossed into its airspace, prompting strong comments from President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and a diplomatic response from Ankara. NATO has also condemned the incident, warning against actions that could threaten the security of alliance members. Meanwhile, tensions have increased further after Iran reportedly suspended the exit of its citizens toward Turkey, adding another layer onto an already complex regional situation. While in a latest development, Iran has carried out a drone strike in the Nakhchivan exclave in Azerbaijan, hitting near the airport and a nearby village. 2 civilians were reportedly injured and a drone also fell close to a school. The incident marks the first time the Iran war has directly affected the South Caucasus. Let's bring in our guest, Dr. Mehmet Çelik, editorial coordinator at the Daily Sabah from Istanbul, Turkey. Dr. Mehmet, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now, earlier today, let's begin with the most recent development here. Earlier today, Iranian drones have struck Azerbaijani territory in Nakhchivan. How serious is this development in terms of regional security?
Well, of course, it's, I think, as part of a wider regional escalation. What happened today is also risking the region to fall into the trap of this war that is being carried out right now. I mean, we know what happened in the Gulf region yesterday. A projectile or a missile was brought down by NATO forces as it was heading towards Turkish airspace. And today in Nakhchivan, I think this strategy, there is a strategy here that Iran has employed, and that is to attack basically the neighborhood and to draw them into the war. This is something that Ankara has very strongly criticized, not only after Turkey was attacked or Turkey and NATO brought down a missile, but even prior to that, Turkey had criticized that this war shouldn't be expanding to the wider region, and Iran should not be carrying out attacks against the Gulf countries, be it Doha in Qatar or Dubai in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and other places. So I think this risk is very dangerous at the moment, and it's still very fragile. I mean, what happened today in Nakhchivan or yesterday in Turkey are, I mean, particularly for Turkey, let's say, as a country that has been part of the diplomatic initiatives and diplomatic processes to bring or to find a solution to this conflict prior to the war between the United States and Iran. Turkey has been pushing forward for peace and stability through diplomatic means. But I think a statement that came out today from the National Defense Ministry is very important to highlight, and that is that Turkey will not refrain from using force and from retaliating any threat that it sees along its borders. So I think Turkey's position is very firm. It wants to utilize and prioritize diplomacy, but in the face of a threat, it will not shy away from using force when it is necessary.
Okay. And Doctor, could this have been a misfire linked to Iran's wider conflict with Israel and the United States, or does it suggest Azerbaijan has been deliberately targeted?
Well, I mean, in terms of Azerbaijan today and yesterday, Turkey, there's 2 possibilities. One, this was a miscalculated target, and 2, it is actually, as you know, the command and chain of command has been in a way broken in Iran also. So it could be as part of expanding the war, but it could also be as part of a miscalculation. Nevertheless, throwing missiles to the neighborhood rather than Israel being one of the actors in this conflict is risky. It targets U.S. bases in these countries, or whether through miscalculations these countries are targeted. I think it could further escalate tensions not only between Iran and Israel and the United States, but also Arab countries in the Gulf or Turkey and Azerbaijan could also find this threat to be threatening its sovereignty, and this is something that neither country would accept at the moment.
Okay, and Baku has summoned Iran's ambassador and signalled possible response measures. Same thing occurred in Ankara. Iran's ambassador has also been summoned there. What signals does that send diplomatically?
Well, I think the fact that none of these countries have retaliated using force, they still want to give this problem a diplomatic chance. And you know, they want to firmly state their position that this is something that is not acceptable. And same thing happened in Turkey yesterday. Turkey summoned the Iranian ambassador in Ankara as well. But I think this shouldn't be taken in a wrong way. I mean, Iran makes the statements that these are not targeting the countries per se. They're only targeting the bases in those countries, but nevertheless, this is their sovereign soil, and that these attacks are being carried out against. Today, the Iranian deputy foreign minister was live at Al Haber as part of Turquoise Media a few moments ago, and he was saying Iran has good relations with Turkey, for example. But we know that this is, and this wasn't, and he stated that this wasn't an attack carried against Turkey. But I think what needs to be highlighted here is that regardless of these air bases or these facilities being attacked, it still will have consequences, as this is a violation of territorial integrity on any of these countries. And of course, we know the tensions between Azerbaijan and Iran in the South Caucasus. And this is something that could further expand the war to a different region beyond the Middle East as well.
Okay, now staying on the airspace violations in Turkey, NATO has condemned the incident. How significant is it when the alliance publicly responds to an event involving one of its members?
Well, we know that the missile was intercepted by NATO, located in the Middle East, in the Mediterranean Sea. And Turkey is part of NATO. Turkey is the second largest army, and one of the founding members of the alliance is Turkey. So from the first days of the establishment of the alliance. Nevertheless, we know that the Article 5 is not at work at the moment. Pete Hegseth yesterday also, the U.S. Defense Secretary mentioned that as well. But it shows that, I think sends the message of solidarity that NATO wants to put forward very clearly. I think communication is very key here. The fact that Turkey was attacked is also an attack carried out against NATO alliance, and NATO has to communicate very well that an attack on any of its members' soil should be considered as an attack to the alliance itself, and then things could further escalate, and the picture could be looking very differently in case of further attacks being carried out.
Okay, now looking at both incidents together once again with Turkey and what happened in Azerbaijan earlier today, Nakhchivan borders Turkey and Ankara has a defense partnership with Azerbaijan. Could an incident like this draw Turkey more directly into the situation?
Well, I mean, the relationship between Turkey and Azerbaijan is very clear to everyone, and we know that we saw that very clearly during the tensions and with Armenia in the very recent years. I think Turkey's position is Turkey treats a threat to Azerbaijan as if these threats are carried out against its own soil, and as that motto of one nation and two states backs that position. But at the moment, what we understand is that both Turkey and Azerbaijan are being very careful, as the situation is very delicate, and they still want to consider diplomatic channels to be kept alive. And this is something that I think both Turkey, Azerbaijan, and even states like Qatar are still giving a big chance to, and still considering it to be a deterrence factor in face of all these irresponsible attacks by Iran carried out in the wider region. Of course, Turkey could be drawn into the picture in case there is a direct confrontation between Azerbaijan and Iran, or things further escalate, turning into a very direct confrontation or hard military confrontation, Turkey will not refrain from making sure that Turkey's brothers and sisters in Azerbaijan are also protected.
So, if a last quick question here, Doctor, if tensions were to escalate further between Iran and Azerbaijan, could Turkey's NATO membership bring the alliance indirectly into the equation?
Well, that's something that would have to be, I guess, considered by the alliance. Turkey could not mobilize NATO for that perhaps, but it would have to be something that discussed within the alliance itself, and Turkey would make sure that not only Turkey is mobilized, but also Turkey's European allies and the Western allies are there, as well as Azerbaijan's Western allies are there to ensure protection is provided for the Azerbaijan.
Okay.
Or at least a solution is being put forward diplomatically to end the confrontation.
Okay, Dr. Mehmet Çelik, it's a pleasure talking to you on the program. Thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you, Dilek.
You're up to date with world news for the hour. Stay tuned to A News for more updates, and thank you for watching.